What's up, everybody? Welcome into the pod at the Palace. Curtis Wilkerson and Scottie Bordelon with Natty State Sports here with you on just another beautiful Monday in Fayetteville. Can't complain about the weather. The Razorbacks, Scottie, have reached the final week of the regular season, and for the first time in the Eric Musselman era, it feels essentially pointless, I guess.
Yeah.
The Razorbacks are 14-15 overall. They're 5-11 in SEC play. I don't think even the biggest haters in the world, like Matt Norlander included, had any inclination that things would be this bad for the Razorbacks. But alas, here we are. Arkansas did go to Lexington over the weekend, lost to Kentucky, 111-102. It was entertaining, at least.
It was, absolutely.
A lot of fun to watch, man.
It was that. Like, I feel like going into that game, I at least had a hunch that it wasn't going to be 63-57 like it was in Bud.
Yeah.
And Kentucky's like the team in the country that, you know, if somebody's like, all right, who's going to score 100 this weekend, it's going to be Kentucky or
Facts.
It's going to be Alabama. So Arkansas faced Kentucky over the weekend, gave up 111. Was that their most they've given up in an SEC game?
Yeah.
Not ideal.
That's
but
right.
That offense is crazy talented, like we talked about. But it kind of made me wonder why Arkansas's had issues scoring the ball for a lot of the year.
That's a fair assessment to make.
But then again, like, Kentucky's not a good defensive team, but, you know, there are plenty of teams on the schedule that aren't exactly great defensively, but you haven't done that. Like, it was the craziest thing to me is that, you know, there's been several SEC games this year where they haven't even cracked 60, and then you go on the road to Rupp, of all places, and hang up your most points since Mike Anderson was the coach and Marshall Henderson was playing for Ole Miss.
When you put it like that.
It's crazy.
Yeah,
I was like a junior in college, I think, the last time that they put up that many points.
Yeah, what was that, 2014?
In an SEC game? Yeah, 2014.
Man.
Yeah, Mardrakus Wade had the strap on him that night.
Yeah, dude.
They
It
put up
took a
110.
while for us to get back to that. I know we were looking at it Saturday, and I know Arkansas, they had like 141 or whatever it was on Mississippi Valley State,
Yeah.
you know, in Eric's second year. But looking at SEC play, I remember a couple years ago they got to 101 at South Carolina. They had 101 against somebody else. I can't remember who it was. So they came close a couple times. But yeah, all the way back a decade to get to the 100. What was it? 110 they put on Ole Miss in that game.
110
I think
to 80 that day.
Yeah. So man, that's it's crazy when you think about it. But you're right, man. I mean, I think it just goes to show you that the inconsistencies with this basketball team, it's unreal.
Are wild. They're literally wild.
Oh, man. I mean, it was so encouraging to me from the standpoint of, like, kind of like you mentioned, the Hogs went blow for blow with arguably the most talented team in the country on their home floor. I mean, you know, say what you want about Kentucky. They've got their set of flaws, and they're young. But from just a sheer basketball talent standpoint, those dudes have more than they need. I think it's fair to say. But then, you know, on the other hand, like, it's just incredibly, incredibly frustrating because that version of the Razorbacks would have beat the hell out of Vanderbilt earlier in the week. They would have ran them off the floor. And that version of the Razorbacks probably has a minimum of, 3 more wins probably in league play, and it's just a completely different story. And, you know, styles make fights and matchups matter, and I do think there's something to be said for whatever reason, like, Kentucky is a decent matchup for Arkansas this year. But, man, it just you see the way they played in that game on CBS on Saturday, and then you just look at the full body of work, and you just go, what the hell's happened here? It's crazy, man.
I mean, absolutely. And Caleb Battle's still scoring, like, you know, he's basically on a Mason Jones like scoring tear. I'm not going to say it's been more impressive than what Mason did, but what KB's doing is crazy, and it makes me wonder, you know, like, why couldn't this have been happening longer than just the last 5 games, when the last 5 games haven't really meant a whole lot? No. Like, I'm looking at his game log. He played 2 minutes at Florida, did not play against Texas A&M, 5 minutes against South Carolina. And then this same guy, the last 5 games, averaging 29 points per game.
So what the heck was going on at that time?
I don't know. It's frustrating. And we can dive into this maybe for another episode, but, like, I was just looking at, you know, Team Cume stats on Hog Stats last night, and this team's made fewer threes than last year's team, scored fewer points than last year's team. Obviously, they've still got, at least 3 to go. But I didn't expect this offense, even after last weekend, put up over 100 points. I didn't expect this offense to, struggle, scuffle the way it has, and definitely didn't expect the defense to I think it was reasonable to expect maybe a little bit of a regression defensively, but I didn't expect them to
drop off the map.
Where are they right now? Yeah, they're 137th in defensive efficiency.
Wow.
For the year and 11th inside the league. So,
and even in their worst year defensively, which was I'm assuming the first year under Muss, I think they were still inside the top 50 or 60.
57th.
Yeah. So, holy cow, man! It's hard to fathom. But yeah, and Muss said as much too. Like the offense looked probably as good as it has all year. Maybe their best game aside from, man, for whatever reason, Arkansas is its own worst enemy against Kentucky in the final minutes of these games. Like they had a couple back-breaking turnovers in the game at Bud Walton, and they did again on Saturday. T. Mark had just an inexcusable one there late, and then Davenport had 2 in a row.
Yeah, he had a couple that were not
man,
great.
It just killed him. In between that, and the other thing Muss mentioned was the just not being able to defend the baseline inbounds. And I remember they screwed the play up once underneath. And they got away with it because there's I can't remember what a foul called or ball got kicked out of bounds, something. But they essentially redid it and reran the same play and then got a layup out of it. And it's just like, how does this happen twice in a span of 5 seconds?
Yeah, it reminded me a lot of my kids at home. It's just you see something happen, you tell them not to let it happen again, and then they do the same exact thing. Just that quick.
That's exactly right. And it's nuts to me, like from a fundamental standpoint, like, 2 things that Arkansas struggles with so much is inbounding the ball against pressure and defending baseline inbounds.
Yeah.
And it goes to show you like how much the little details matter. And the crazy thing about it is like getting the ball in against a press has been an Achilles heel for Arkansas like since it predates Muss even. But
for sure,
they've always been really good with baseline underneath stuff, executing it and then defending it prior to this year. Same thing with like sideline inbounds, just those little things that you don't think about that much that can be the difference in a game. And
sure,
listen, when you give up 111 points, like you can't point to one specific play and be like, that was it. But tough one for them. And then like you said, Kentucky does this to a lot of teams. I think it was their 600+ point game. They just scored 117 on Alabama, the weekend prior there. So. It would have been nice to not give up 111 points, but what are you gonna do? So what Caleb Battle's doing is just he's just been nothing short of incredible. And I know going into that game, I was wondering like, well, can you really? Is he really gonna go out there and get 30 again? Yes, he is. Yeah, and I imagine he'll just keep doing it
with plenty of time left.
Yeah, it's wild. I thought Tremont Mark looked closer to form offensively, at least. He looked a little bit more comfortable.
You know how I thought he was a little bit healthier than previous games? He got up 20 shots.
Yeah.
That's how I know that he was feeling okay.
He was letting it fly. Still some effort things that get under my skin. I know I was teeing off on him during the live stream.
Warranted.
But it was nice to see him, a little bit back to form offensively. I thought I liked the way they used Brazil, especially early on in the game. You got him in some ball screens, got him in some dribble handoff, and I just think he's more effective there than he is when you just have him running around on the wing,
absolutely
just floating around in the corners.
Yeah, you get him more high percentage shots instead of just having him floating on the perimeter. And even if he gets an open look, you don't know if he's going to take it. So I like the interior looks. I thought Arkansas's bigs, kind of as a whole, played pretty well in that short roll, whether passing or putting up floaters or getting all the way to the rims. I want to commend them for that. And then just Jeremiah Davenport minus the 2 turnovers late, I thought was really good.
Really good.
14 points, kind of snuck up on you, 3 or 5 from deep. That's what you needed. On the road, and he's a guy that needs like less than 0 airspace to get a shot up. And so he sees the ball go through one time, he's going to pull the trigger again if he's got any airspace at all. And that provided them a big boost. Kai was okay scoring the ball, like 4 of 6. Just all those bigs were just in foul trouble.
Yeah.
And so you didn't really know who was going to be in the game at any given time, but there was a lot to like. I think obviously offensively, 13 assists to 12 turnovers. You end up with 10 steals, so you're kind of active defensively, but It was either you're getting a steal or you're giving up a 3 or a layup, so or you're sending them to the free throw line. So anytime you send a team to the free throw line 42 times, you're not going to be happy about it. And Eric pretty much said that was those were the 2 numbers that stuck out to him the most. So, but I guess my kind of last thing was I've said it on the stream. For the majority of that game, I thought that this team played like the grown men that we thought they were going to be, coming into the season. They battled. It was just, a few too many mistakes when you couldn't really afford mistakes down the stretch. Yeah,
for sure, man. And it's kind of been a theme for us, since we started doing this pod where does it mean anything going into Wednesday against LSU? Nope. It sure doesn't. But, when they lay an egg against Vanderbilt, we're very critical of it, and rightfully so. But when they go out there and play their tails off, I think we can commend them for that, and they did on Saturday, even though it was in a losing effort, and there's no moral victories. But, I think even going into the season, before we knew what we knew about this team, they were preseason top 15 or whatever, or before the rankings came out, like when the schedule was released, you probably looked at Arkansas versus Kentucky at Rupp and said, that's probably a loss. In fairness. And I know they've had success there in the past, but you probably look at that one and you go, that's going to be one of the tougher games on the schedule.
Sure.
And so, for them to go and play the way they did, good on them. What it means, I don't know. You just hope that maybe they can bottle it up and carry it over into Nashville. There's no evidence that suggests they'll do that, but what else do we have to go off of?
Like Eric says all the time, like every game takes on its own identity. And I wrote Saturday, it seems like this team takes on a different identity every game. So you don't know, like the last game means nothing about means nothing for the next game.
It was 2 totally different teams that took the floor last week.
Absolutely, yeah. And I wrote that too. Is you just never know what you're going to get from this team. The same team that hung 100 points on the road at Rupp was down 16 with 8 minutes left on their home floor against Vandy. That doesn't make any sense. Like, it's the same exact guys. And then I asked Tremont Mark after the game the other day, I was just can you explain the up and down nature of this week? And he was just like, man, I don't know. We were just ready to play today, and they basically weren't the other day. And the why is a total and complete mystery.
Yep.
I don't know. I think we should title this episode, I don't know.
Yeah, listen, people, if you're coming to us for answers about this team, go somewhere else and good luck finding it, okay? Because we don't have it. Muss doesn't have it. The players don't have it. It's just been one of those years, man. So what stinks about it is they did have a good week the week prior that put them, nothing they can do at this point could put them in good position, but it put them in position to, maybe make a little bit of a climb in the SEC standings. Unfortunately, they didn't handle their business last week, man. It means, they probably, Arkansas has to sweep this week, and A&M has to lose both of their games for the Hogs to avoid Wednesday sadness. It's pretty much where they're at.
That's a tough one.
That's disgusting. Obviously, Arkansas has LSU at home. Then they go to Alabama. The Aggies have Mississippi State at home, and they go to Ole Miss. So it's not like they have an easy road there either.
Right.
Georgia, who Arkansas is tied with, but would need to pass for tiebreaker purposes, most likely. They have Ole Miss at home, and then they go to Auburn. I know last week, Scotty, you mentioned a website that came to your attention where you can kind of plug in expected results, or really any results you want for the rest of the schedule, and it'll kind of bump out some seeding. And so maybe we do that and see if we can get an idea of what Arkansas's path could look like here. I'm assuming it's going to be 5 games in 5 days when it's all said and done.
Probably. Yeah, we can go game by game just the rest of this week if you want to.
I like it.
So we got March 5th games and March 6th games.
Okay.
Florida is at home against Alabama.
Yikes. Let's see. Alabama just lost that home game to Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good game, by the way. Florida, I don't remember what they did. They lost to South Carolina, I think, over the weekend.
Yes, that sounds right.
Okay, and this game is at Florida?
It's at Florida.
Yikes, man.
Me, myself, and I'm taking Florida.
Florida at home, yeah. Yeah, I'm good with that.
Georgia is at home against Ole Miss.
Georgia.
I'm like you on that one. Missouri is at home against Auburn.
Auburn.
Arkansas is at home against LSU. And before we picked this game, I ran all these games past my wife last night.
Okay.
And we got to Arkansas LSU. I said, "Who do you like in this one?" Mal said, "I don't know, bro. Arkansas is a train wreck."
I mean, she's not wrong.
Yeah.
We might need to get her on the show.
She needs to be filling in for me, because that's ball-knowing stuff.
Listen, I mean, I have zero justification in saying this and no reason to believe it. I'm going to go Arkansas.
I am too.
Senior day, not that it matters. It's going to be a small crowd. They got 20-pieced in Baton Rouge, but I just can't fathom in my head this team losing 4 in a row. I can't put that in my mind. So I'm going to go win. Not that it matters.
Kentucky is at home against Vanderbilt.
Kentucky.
South Carolina is at home against Tennessee.
Okay, South Carolina won at Tennessee.
Yes.
I'm going to say Tennessee gets revenge.
Gets them back. Okay. Texas A&M is at home against Mississippi State.
Texas A&M picked up a huge win over the weekend.
They did.
They're at home
against Mississippi State.
I don't know, man. That's kind of a tough one.
It is, because those teams are so similar.
I know.
It feels like.
Yeah, give me the edge to the home team, I guess. I could go either way with that.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think I'll go A&M. All right. We're on to Saturday's games,
okay.
March 9th games. Alabama's at home against Arkansas.
Alabama.
Auburn's at home against Georgia.
Auburn.
LSU's at home against Missouri.
LSU.
Remind me, we need to do a Missouri Ken Palm page update.
Yes, we do.
Ole Miss is at home against Texas A&M.
Ooh,
that's a like
good.
A&M's week is not easy.
No, it's not.
Like, it's not as hard. Obviously, it's not as nearly as difficult as it could be. But
yeah, I think I like Ole Miss in that one. I mean,
too.
that's a almost like a tournament playing game for them.
Yeah. Mississippi State's at home against South Carolina.
Ooh. I went against Mississippi State. I'm going to go with them.
Okay.
At home.
Tennessee is at home against Kentucky.
Wow. Tennessee at home.
And Vandy is at home against Florida.
Florida.
All right, here we go.
Okay.
Calculating the seeds. Something just happened, and I can't see the results. That's exactly what we get, Curtis.
That is exactly what we get.
Oh my Lord. Okay.
Well, if you're going back through and replugging them, it just goes to show you that, you know, Arkansas, they could have avoided a lot of this here, because I can tell you without these things even coming up that they're going to be probably either 11th or 12th, depending on how that shakes out. And that didn't have to be the case. And all they really had to do there was take care of business at home against Vanderbilt, to avoid having to win 5 games in a row at this term. They're just not going to do that. They're just not.
Yeah.
And so, you know, if you look at the SEC tournament bracket and the way it shakes out, so for Wednesday sadness, which is just probably what we're dealing with here, you know, that it's the 12 seed plays the 13 and the 11 plays the 14. Ideally, you would want to get that 11 seed, because then you get Missouri.
Sure.
If Arkansas is in the 12-13 game, they're probably going to get Vanderbilt, which I know you lost to them at home, but I wouldn't be super upset with that matchup either.
Yeah. I've got the results.
You got them
now.
up? Okay,
yes.
perfect.
It has Arkansas as a 12 seed.
Okay.
Playing Vanderbilt.
Okay.
The 13.
Okay. And so that game would be
Wednesday.
It would be a Wednesday 7 p.m. game in Nashville if they were in that 12-13.
Yep. And then the winner of that game, based on what we just plugged in,
would play the 5 seed.
Would get number 5 seed Kentucky.
Shit. Okay.
That's not great.
I mean, I just said a while ago that I didn't think that's a terrible matchup for Arkansas, and it's not. But man, the big problem with that too is like it would be a de facto road game because Kentucky's like the only team that travels to Nashville
for sure.
From a fan perspective,
turning that into Cattsville.
Yeah, and that would be tough, man. And so yeah, your route would have to be through Vanderbilt, and you'd have to turn around for a 4 p.m. game against Kentucky on Thursday. If you win that game. Let's see. Then the game 4 winner would then play the number 4 seed on Friday, who would have been on 2 days rest after you played back-to-backs. And I'm guessing the 4 seed would be...
I had South Carolina.
Would be South Carolina in this scenario?
Yeah.
Which...
I'd almost rather play South Carolina than Kentucky.
I would too. And hey, I mean, there's a chance that flips, going into Nashville. Yeah, I mean, if you got the 12-13, you got Vanderbilt... and then South Carolina the next day, I mean, does that remind you of anything?
Yeah, it does. Eric's first year.
Yep, that's exactly right. So
except
maybe
South Carolina is not maybe the surprise team in the entire country.
Yeah, that's exactly right, man. Yeah, so that's the brutality of it. Any way it shakes out, really. You could look at it and theoretically, like let's say Arkansas gets up to that 11 seed. They play Missouri on Thursday. Well, then they would turn around and have to play. Who would we have? The 6 seed the next day? Yeah, which would probably be Florida, I guess, in this scenario, probably. Yeah. And so whatever, like either way, like it would really stink to have a Kentucky matchup on a Thursday. But if you could avoid that, like Wednesday and Thursday is something that it can be navigated, I guess is what I'm saying.
Sure.
But when you get to that Friday and you're guaranteed then to play one of the top 4 seeds in the league and you're on your 3rd game in 3 days and they haven't played, they're on fresh legs. I mean, it's just brutal, man.
Yeah, that's not great.
It's so tough.
It's matching up with Michie Johnson potentially and Colin Murray-Boyles and having to defend B.J. Mack.
Right.
That's just...
with dead legs. And I guess it helps maybe in a sense where Arkansas is getting healthy maybe at the right time. We'll see if Jalen Graham did his homework, was available in a sense of health for Saturday at Kentucky, but he stayed back.
Not available in terms of getting on the plane and going to Kentucky.
Yeah, I guess it was an academic issue, or so we're told. So we'll see about that. But I mean, I guess if you do go down to Nashville and you wind up in that situation, then you could potentially have, a fresh Jalen Graham, a fresh Keon Minifield, just bodies that you could throw into the mix if you needed to. But still, man, that's just it's a brutal stretch. And then let's say you win that one, and then you got to go to a Saturday where you're almost certainly playing like Alabama or Tennessee or something.
Arkansas would be on the top half of the bracket with Tennessee.
Yeah, and have fun doing that.
Yeah,
we're not even talking about potentially seeing an Auburn team that beat you by 30 in your own gym, and it's just it's just going to be a brutal road. And so when I look at it for Arkansas, see where you wind up, and I think bare minimum just get to Friday and see what happens. But I don't necessarily have any expectations of them getting beyond that.
Yeah, I don't either. I was wondering if there was what is the scenario that Arkansas gets out of Wednesday? Like what has to, so Arkansas has to win both games, like you said,
A&M
and then
loses
A&M
both.
has to lose both.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think if Arkansas wins both games, even if they stay tied with Georgia, they would pass them because the Alabama win for Arkansas would hold more weight than the South Carolina win for Georgia, I think.
Okay. Yeah,
and that would get them out of that.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Yeah, it's really tough. And then that puts you in a situation, though, where you wouldn't have to play Wednesday. Thursday, you would be the 10, so you'd play the 7 seed, which would probably be like Mississippi State or Ole Miss, I guess. And then you'd have to go into Friday and play the 2 seed, which will be probably Bama or Tennessee.
Yeah, Alabama.
So, cool.
Yeah.
Great.
Last Saturday's game, so the Kentucky game, gave me some, I don't want to say hope, but maybe a little bit of optimism that Arkansas can go play well at Alabama, because Alabama's another one of those teams that is just kind of like, as my dad says, it's highway department defense. Like if you get a defender on your hip, like the only person you really have to worry about at the rim is like Nick Pringle.
Right.
Which Nick Pringle's a fine player, I guess, but
he's got a good Twitter game.
Does he?
Yeah. He's posted some pretty good videos in the past of like making fun of us and yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
He does it for like all the teams and stuff, or he used to at least when he wasn't playing. But yeah,
I love that. But yeah, he's not exactly like a big rim deterrent.
Right. And neither is Grant Nelson.
Right. So but again, if Arkansas wants to go compete on the road against another high flying offense, you're gonna have to make tough shots and you're gonna have to sustain it. And I wonder if Eric this weekend is gonna be like he was at Kentucky and be like, hey, today we're gonna run.
Yeah.
Do you run with Alabama on their home court?
Why not?
Sure. At this point, you just cut the guys loose almost, like within reason, obviously.
Sure.
Like if you're out there, trying to get your N1 mixtape on, like you're probably going to come sit. But yeah, I'm all on board with ball in KB's hands, figure it out from there, and just see what can happen.
Right. Yeah, I think I'm in the same wavelength there. Like, listen, and sign me up for that too, just from a viewing perspective. Like, it's going to be 11 a.m. game. We're going to be sitting in here, live streaming that. Make it a track meet, man.
For sure.
Make it crazy. And because here's the deal: whether you try to slow the pace or not, Bama's going to shoot 43s and they're going to run anyway. Mm-hmm. So you might as well, try to take advantage of them in transition. Pound the paint a little bit, take advantage of their lack of size in there, and just play with some freedom. I thought they looked good doing it.
I could be wrong, but Alabama got outshot on 3-point attempts the other day by Tennessee.
Really?
Tennessee put up 43s, and Bama put up 37.
Oh, wow.
On their home floor.
And I know the crazy thing about it is Tennessee, I know that Connect and Ziegler combined, I think, to go 5 of 21.
They did.
Yeah, from 3. And they won the game on the road.
Yeah, that's pretty wild.
But that's because, I look up and like Josiah Jordan-James is hitting corner threes. Mm-hmm. And
yeah, he hit the dagger the other night.
Yeah, right. And it's like the ancillary guys started getting it done. And Jonas Adu was getting some big buckets late. Tennessee is good. I know we've said it on this pod before. I'm sure they're still top 5 or whatever in the country in defensive efficiency. It's not as imposing as it has been in the past. And I think Arkansas kind of exposed that in the first half when they played them.
Sure.
But they've got the pieces, I think. Like this is the team for Rick Barnes that has, I think, the best ammunition to make a deep, deep run. Like they could go to the Final Four and it would not surprise me at all.
I mean, they were Final Four contender last year, and then they added Dalton Connect. Basically, I don't want to say to the exact same roster, but
for the most part,
it feels like he's had the exact same roster for 5 years.
Right.
So yes, if Rick's going to get him one, this might be his best chance. He's got the Player of the Year.
I think so.
Right, like not just in the league, but
yeah.
Who else is out there?
Edey,
yeah, that's fair.
Edey will probably repeat. But I mean, Connect. I mean, he's a first-team All-American
for sure,
hands down. So
for sure. Yeah, I didn't think. I thought he had better games than he had against Alabama.
Yeah, he wasn't great,
and he still had, 13 and 5.
Mm-hmm. Man.
That's a good game on a typical night for Arkansas.
Yeah. One more thing before we get out of here. I think this is probably a really good day for it, and we'll have another pod on Wednesday, previewing the LSU game a little bit. But I also think that'll be a good day for us, maybe to do just kind of some senior shout outs, because there's going to be several guys who are playing their last game in Bud regardless, just running out of eligibility and stuff, and maybe we can look back on that and have a little bit of fun with it. But I think it's a good day for us to tackle one of those questions that we've received recently, like in the comments on this show, which was to kind of outline who we think or who we would like to have back next season. And for me, I mean, first of all, a lot of it depends on who your coach is. And, like this stuff is so fluid. There's a lot of back and forth with it. And, I know obviously there are a lot of rumors swirling and things really heating up about, potentially losing Muss at the end of the season. And who knows, like it very well could still happen. I'm sure his name's going to be mentioned in a lot of different capacities for different jobs.
Surely.
But that has cooled off some lately. Which is good because, like we said from the get go, like I love Muss, man. So I hope he sticks around. So we'll see what that looks like. But here's the thing for me: like I watched the entire UConn game yesterday. Championship level teams, they do have continuity. It's a new era of college basketball at the transfer portal. Championship level teams have a certain amount of continuity.
Yeah.
On the other hand, this Arkansas team has been like a complete disaster that doesn't represent the foundation that Muss has laid over the last 4 years. So I think there's a very delicate balance here between having some of that continuity and not having just completely remake your roster versus like they do kind of need to clean house and get a fresh start after what's been kind of a shit show.
Yeah.
So it's just going to be so fascinating to see how that all shakes out in terms of who can come back, who wants to come back, who the staff wants back. I don't think it's going to be a ton of guys personally, but we can certainly talk about it. And so just to get us off the board here, L. Ellis, Denaje Harris, Chandler Lawson, Jalen Graham, Mekhi Mitchell, Jeremiah Davenport, all out of eligibility. Like they can't come back even if they wanted to.
Yep.
So those guys are gone for sure. But then there's about 8 guys who theoretically there's an option for. And so I think we start with the youngsters and we work our way up and see kind of where we're at with this. So starting with the young guys, the 2 freshmen, Layden Blocker and Bay Fall. Personally, I'm a little bit torn. There's a big part of me that thinks you kind of need to do everything you can to get those 2 guys back and develop them. But at the same time, I think you have to be willing to make that commitment to doing so. And it's a two-way street there. And I promise I'm not trying to speak ill of anybody or talk down on anybody. But what you can't have is a Joseph Pinion situation.
Yeah.
Where, a guy who gets a little bit of run as a freshman, shows some promise, and then essentially, and I'm sure he's made some improvements, but like his role it decreased this year.
Right.
Compared to what it was a year ago. And so you look at him. He
probably came back for his second year thinking that he might have some kind of a role.
That's exactly right.
This year he just flat out hasn't.
That's exactly right. So if you're going to make a commitment to player development and really fixing some of the flaws and finding some areas to grow and blossom, and if it's a two-way street where the coaching staff is committed to doing it and the players are committed to the process, I mean, I would like to have it because I think Layden's got a bright future, and I think Bay is your only front court player who, you know what I mean? Like, you need to at least have somebody. I know you're going to add some guys, but damn.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think about those 2?
I wrote Blocker's got 3 years left. Absolutely would have him back.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
I think if he, makes the decision to come back and staff has him back, like it's mutual. I think the areas of emphasis are apparent.
Yes.
And I think you've got a foundation to work with him because he's a guy that got on the floor early in the season when Eric started to realize, man, this team just can't really defend at all.
Yeah.
You throw in the freshman who doesn't know any better. He'll go guard anybody. And he can, there's some bad with the gambling and all that stuff, but there's some really good that can come out of that.
And there's an awareness there with Lay.
For sure.
Like we had him in this office interviewing him and we were like, okay, so when has Muss really gotten on you? And he's like, probably when I gamble, get too aggressive. Yeah. He knows.
Yeah.
And that awareness is a big part of making improvements. So I'll give him credit for that.
I like self-aware people.
Yes.
That's That's a big plus, especially if the freshman is self-aware. I think that's a big positive.
And fearless, which I appreciate.
For sure. Definitely fearless, self-aware. You can build defensively. Like, that's a good place, I think, to start in the backcourt, because you want to next year have a team that defends a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you factor him into that. And I think, like, off season, like, the jumpers just got to work.
Yeah.
You got to work on that.
Was he made 2 in the last 3 games or something? So, he's
something like that. Yeah, he's working on the strap a little. As far as Bayfall, I wrote he's got 3 years left, right?
Mm-hmm.
Would like to have him back ideally, but I get it if he wants to go actually play.
Yeah.
Or have a significant role next year, because even if he does come back, we don't know know where he fits in.
Yeah, and we haven't seen enough of him to really, I don't think, make any definitive determinations on his ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
We just know you can't teach some of the physical traits that he has in terms of his length, his ability to move at his size. He does have some instincts defensively when it comes to blocking shots and protecting the rim. He can run the floor.
Yeah.
So he's a fit from all those standpoints, but he's got to add a ton of strength, and he's got a long way to go in terms of the game slowing down for him. And just, I don't want to say basketball IQ, but just becoming comfortable on the floor.
Sure.
Because everything's so sped up for him. And what worries me about it, and we mentioned this, I think the last time we talked about Bay, is like, that, like, practice, weight room, individual drills, like, all that stuff is great and it's necessary. But I don't think the game slows down for you unless you're playing in it.
Yeah, you got to be in it.
And so I don't know how much progress he's going to make between now and November from that standpoint.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like, if he's a guy that accepts being a project and understanding the work that's going to be required, great. Because, I mean, again, like, you can't teach some of the attributes that he has there. Sure. But, if he's a guy who's just like, dude, like, I did this for a year, I need to go play, I'm thinking about my, professional career, whatever, who knows what's going through those guys' minds, and it might not be the place for him.
Yeah, that's fair. I think every time I think about Bay, I go back to what you said about, I think it was Jonas Adu at Tennessee. Is that right?
Yeah, yes.
Basically, I remember you saying that, like, Bay is Adu when Adu was a freshman,
mm-hmm.
and it's just how much can you develop?
Yeah.
How much can you develop, and what parts of your game can you add? What parts of your game that you have can you grow?
Right.
And so I'm not ready to sell on him and say,
sure,
get gone. But it's gonna take some definite work, and it might take more time. Like, even after next year, we could be having the same conversation about Bay.
Right.
And then maybe his latter years in college is when you maybe reap the benefits of what he's doing now and what he will do this offseason.
Sure. Yeah, and that's a good parlay to move forward into the sophomores, which are Joseph Pinion and Keon Minifield. With Pinion, it's tough when we already discussed him a little bit, where his role is actually decreased from his freshman year to his sophomore year. And I think at this point we just know what's up. Like,
yeah,
really good shooter, has some issues on the defensive end, limited offensively beyond his ability to catch and shoot 3-pointers.
Mm-hmm.
If you haven't cracked the rotation in your first 2 years, what's going to change, I guess, is my question. But at the same point, like, you hate to see it with an in-state guy, you just do. And then, heaven forbid, we have another Jackson Robinson situation where he goes somewhere else.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just a better fit for him, and he scuffles along for a year, and then he blows up.
Right.
You know?
Right.
But I don't think you can use that as a reason to fully invest in him, especially when you have as many spots that you have to fill as Arkansas does in this offseason.
Yeah. He's got 2 years left.
Yeah.
My note was find your level and get on the floor.
Yeah.
I mean,
kind of agree with
that's not a slight whatsoever.
Not at all. I love Joe, man.
I do appreciate Joe for battling the last 2 years.
Absolutely.
And, like, trying to find was like after last season, I remember he did a radio interview on the Buzz, and he was like, "Look, man, I know that an increased role for me this year starts with being a more capable, reliable defender. I don't know if he has grown as a defender because we haven't seen him that much.
Yeah.
But in the preseason, I remember writing a magazine story in my old job about, Pinion looks like he's carrying himself differently this year. He looks like he's a little bit bigger than he was
great
the
in the
year
preseason,
before.
man.
And then it just never materialized. Why? I don't know. Could just be a product of this season just being so, you know, and so. And then Eric kind of had last year to look back on and be like, I don't know that I'm going to throw him in based on what I know. And you just kind of roll with an older group of guys.
Yeah.
But if he does come back, like there's going to be another group of older guys.
That's exactly right.
And more competition to fight with in the backcourt.
Yep. And Pinion is not a guy who is going to get processed. He's just not. But is he a guy that's going to stay? Like he like you said, he did that. Like he took that chance this past year and came back for another year.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure he's improved as a basketball player, but in terms of his role, hasn't changed.
Yeah.
So
and he can look at guys like Jackson Robinson, Darian Ford, KK Robinson, Mikal Mitchell. Like that's just 4 guys right there that have had, pretty decent success, I would say, this year after leaving Arkansas. I think they just found their spot. They found their level.
Yeah.
And it's not a knock to just be like for your level to be the OVC. Like it's not. Or in Jackson Robinson's case, that kid is a Big 12 shooter.
Right.
He is. So just like I would say, find your spot, find your level, find your fit. Not trying to run him off.
No, absolutely
but I think
not.
that's just.
Yeah.
I think that in my opinion, I think that's best for him.
Yeah, we're just addressing the things that have to be addressed here. Just our opinions. Keon Minifield is an interesting situation because for multiple reasons. One, he's already used his free transfer. He's not going to be a grad. So like if he were to get back in the portal, he's running the risk of having to sit a year. For one. 2, he's not a pro. 3, he's not on scholarship currently. So not only is this a stay or go kind of decision, like you have to decide if you're going to put him on scholarship or not. He's not going to stay if he's not on scholarship next year. And so I guess what I'm saying is that's almost like bringing somebody out of the portal because it's one of your 13 scholarships. It's going to have to be allocated to a player.
Yeah.
So it's almost like making an addition that you already have.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a tough spot for Arkansas to be in and a tough spot for Keon to be in. I like Minifield a lot. I mean, I think he plays with great pace. I think he's got some big time playmaking ability. He's tiny.
That he is.
How confident are you that he can overcome that and add some weight and add some strength to where he's not, a matchup-based player? Because if you're going to give him a scholarship, and especially if you're in a situation where, you would like to have a laden blocker back, for example, well, that's 2 scholarships to your backcourt right there. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So it's kind of true. Keon's situation is fascinating because I forgot that he's essentially a glorified walk-on right now,
For sure.
Like you have to, that's like making an addition out of the portal. Like you keep Keon, you give him a scholarship, and it's somebody that you can't bring in. Mm-hmm. It's where you're at.
I think, again, just me, I would, if he wants to be back, I would have him back because I'm interested to see what an offseason here looks like for him. And then you get him, barring injury or more, I guess, academic concerns or whatever, you get a full year of him. I would love to have seen like what kind of steam or momentum he may have been able to build up early in the year had he been available. Yeah, because
he's had some moments, buddy, since
he has.
He's had some crazy good games.
He has. Like it was late non-con more than anything.
Yeah.
But you saw like he can have an impact on a game. Case in point, like the first half of the Auburn game in the SEC opener. Mm-hmm. He's scoring the ball. He's hitting like momentum type shots because he's not afraid to put the ball up. And I think there's a lot of value. Like if you've got these guys like Trevin Brazile on your roster, I think there's value in having a guy that wants to find them.
Yeah.
And he's think he can throw some really great pinpoint perimeter lobs to guys, and you just put a little bit of weight on him. I'm interested to see what another year looks like personally.
For sure. Yeah, I think I would be okay with that too. And I also think, you mentioned this where, like, how selective will Arkansas be in the portal? How does this year change the way that they kind of approach it? I would rather have a fairly known commodity already in place and kind of build my roster around that than I would taking another risk from the portal that might not pan out.
Yeah.
Because I do think another thing about Keon is he's a great teammate.
He is.
And the guys love him. They like to play with him. And everybody likes to play with a point guard that'll give you the ball.
For sure.
Right? And so I think that's something else that needs to be accounted for because culture is also a big thing, I think, moving forward for this team.
I want to see if he drops another mixtape next year, too.
Heck yeah. We're all over it if he does. So you mentioned Trevin Brazile. I have every reason to believe he's going to enter the draft, whether he has a good season or not this year, which he is not by, I think, expectations. He came back this year when he didn't have to. Like he could have gone last year and probably would have been a back-end selection and, could have grinded out and figured it out. This is an incredibly weak draft this year. And so with Trevin, like, he could have a much better season in terms of playing basketball next year and actually drop in the draft status because the pool next year is going to improve so much.
Right.
Given his situation, I'm a little bit torn on it just because it almost feels like he's still got a lot to prove, but I don't know if this is where he needs to prove it.
Yeah, I'm 100%. I 100% agree with that. Like, you don't have to come back for another year. You can just, if you get the opportunity to prove yourself during the summer, you do it for a couple months. Yeah. And then just, continue to grow your game and not have to worry about class, and you can focus on basketball.
Exactly.
And basketball only. Yep. So
I think absolute bare minimum, he declares and keeps his options, keeps the door open or whatever.
Yeah.
But he's also a guy who, when he starts going to workouts for teams and they see a 6'11" dude who can jump out of the gym and hit threes, and when he goes to the combine and tests off the charts, like, his stock will rise this summer.
Yeah. But I do think he's going to have to answer some questions.
Absolutely.
Like, is your knee healthy? Are you fully healthy? Are you an injury risk? Because he hasn't played. He's been in college. This is his third season in college, or third year in college. He hasn't played a full year yet.
No.
And there's been a stretch in every season where he's just not been available. And then,
do you understand the difference between playing with edge and being a toddler problem?
Yeah. There's all that stuff, and then there's the production part.
Right. Yeah. Exactly right.
Do you have the alpha in you? I don't know. I think he's gonna have to prepare to answer quite a few questions.
Yep.
But I do think, like I wrote down, would imagine he'll test the waters and push for pro career, but college is the fallback. But if he does come back to college, he's gonna have to do numbers.
Yeah.
Because like you mentioned, that draft class is going to be better
for sure
the following year.
And you damn sure can't do what you've done the last 2 years, which is use him as a foundation piece to build the rest of your roster around. You just can't do it if you were to come back. Tremont Mark, I don't see what he has left to prove. I mean, you don't tell him no if he wants to return. I'd just be really surprised if that were the case. I mean, he transferred out of Houston because he wanted to showcase his offensive skills more. He's done that.
He has done that.
There you go. Like, he's got 2 more years, but he could come back next year, and what benefit would that have for him?
Yeah, I don't know. We've had the conversation too whether he's good for Arkansas's offense.
Also true.
Like, individually, yeah, he's good, but as a whole, on the whole, if he came to Arkansas and wanted to showcase that he can make tough shots for professional basketball minds, like they're
he's
probably
done that.
they got that box checked. So yeah, I don't see any reason why he would want to.
Yeah. I mean, he entered his name into the draft pool last year.
He did, yeah.
And then I think he's answered the questions that he's probably needed to answer as best as he could. And yeah, again, like, hey, if he comes to you at the end of the year and is like, hey, I'd like to come back, awesome.
The only thing that I've been a little bit disheartened by with him is just I thought we were going to see more lockdown defender type stuff, but in terms of, his offensive skill set, he's put it on display, and we've had conversations like he might have the most pro-ready bag of any guy on the roster, but that was pre this Caleb Battle heater that he's on.
Yeah.
But then he's also, he's gotten glowing compliments from Eric about his toughness, like with the Bahamas stuff and now the shoulder. I would imagine there's other things that we don't know about that he's battled through.
For sure. You mentioned Caleb Battle. To me, like, I think JD Note here. He could come back. Could be a potential preseason All-American, maybe.
Yeah.
I think he would actually be maybe a guy that I would push for to return if I was the staff more than maybe some of the others. Because I think, I would sleep a lot better at night if I was Muss, knowing that I had a guy capable of scoring 30 every game back in the fold. Like, at least that part of the equation,
Sure.
I don't think he's a guy that you want to build the roster around, but boy, it's just a nice piece to have. You feel better about your starting point. But I'm in the same vein of, like, he's been in college for 4 years already, so I don't think he's a draft pick.
Part of me thinks the only way that he'll come back is if he gets that guarantee that, like, he's going to be the cornerstone that you do build around.
Sure. His clock's already ticking as an older guy, so like he's gonna need that, I think. And another guy who, like, how much can he improve his stock with another year? I think he actually could, just from a standpoint of continuing to progress as a defender at a higher level, which he's done late in the season here, but it'd be a bigger sample size, proving that he can stay healthy.
Yes.
Which has been a question for him in the past, not so much this particular year. And then just being an alpha scorer at a high level and not having the weird, coaches DNPs and, some of the stretches that we've seen. Because I think another question with him, I can't think of a better word to use besides character. And I'm not trying to categorize KB as a low character guy, but just like from a teammate standpoint, and, I know he got into some trouble or had some beef with his coach at Temple, or, like whatever was going on there. Like, I think getting on the other side of that is important too.
Yeah.
So I think you could talk me into a KB return more than you could talk me into a Tremont Mark return, is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I feel that.
But I also don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, I don't think so either. My note is, would love to have him back. He's got a year left. My thought is he'll start his pro career.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
Is I think, especially, isn't it funny? Like, you asked me this a couple weeks ago. I'm like, yeah, he might not come back. He might try to go somewhere else. Mm-hmm. But this heater that he's on has got me thinking that he's catching some folks' attention. And he's, like, really showing what he's really capable of. And I think some pro organization, be it foreign or domestic, is going to be interested in a guy that can fill it up like he can.
No doubt about it.
I don't expect him to be back. Would I love KB to come back? You betcha.
Yeah.
Like, there's a dude is.
So it's a home run if it happens.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And the last one, here, Devo Davis. And listen, it's easy to look at all the circumstances and just assume, that this is Devo's last ride, and it very well may be. All I will say is I felt the same way, but I talked to someone close to the program not too long ago, even when all this stuff was going on, like before Devo even returned to the team from his leave of absence, that said Devo would be the guy that he would be least surprised to see come back.
Really?
And that floored me. But I'm just saying, don't write it off. That's all.
Yeah.
Whether I think it's a good idea or not, I'm just saying, don't write it off.
I've got written down 1 year left, and I don't want this to come across the wrong way. I think this may have run its course here.
I think so too.
And I'm not saying that negatively. It's been a heck of a 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And Devo's clock also ticking. Like, he's got a year. Obviously he could come back. But you come back after last year, and in terms of like opinions on his on-floor game, they've probably dipped a little.
Probably a lot.
Yeah, a little was generous. But yeah.
He's averaging half as many points and hasn't played as well defensively. He's not shooting as well.
Half the impact.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate.
Maybe more. Yeah, it is. Yeah, I'm going to drop the kind of I'm not expecting him back.
Yeah.
And so we'll just, maybe at some point we'll have that Devo career wrap pod, and we'll look back pretty fondly at it.
Yeah. Yep. Again, just based on what I was told, I'm not going to close the door on it.
There you go.
And so there you have it. And, I think when all is said and done, probably 2 or 3 guys from this list back. I would say 4 absolute max out of this group is probably what you're looking at, but it's going to be a significant turnover. Mm-hmm. Again, you got the 6 guys who are out of eligibility, and many off of this list are going to be gone. Arkansas's got 2 freshmen coming in. They're going to be hot and heavy in the transfer portal, and we are 2 weeks from today. The portal opens.
You ready?
No. But we're going to do it.
Oh, it's going to be wild. It's going to be wild.
Yeah, it's going to be crazy. And, it's just going to be, I don't want to call it a program-defining offseason, but it's going to be in terms of trajectory and where this thing is headed, because, it was moving through the roof, just from a national brand standpoint, and it took a hit this year.
Yeah.
And the last thing you want to do is have things continue to snowball in the wrong direction.
Yeah, you can't compound it with another. I don't want to say a bad crop, but a crop that just doesn't mesh.
Right. And so does that mean that they're going to be a little bit more patient and selective? Maybe. Does it mean because they have so many spots that they're going to have to fill that they go crazy again? Maybe. What we've seen from Muss so far is that he kind of identifies one area that really stands out, and he almost overcorrects.
I think this offseason that's going to be wing length.
Yeah, agreed.
He
toughness,
brought that
defense
up in the Bahamas, and that's where I was like, yeah, he's kind of right. Like, you've got the Jordan Walsh length isn't there anymore. It's Caleb Battle length.
Yeah, it's different.
Yeah, it is different. It's different, and you don't have a Stanley Amude swingman type. Jeremiah Davenport's as close as you've got to that. But you don't think about JD in terms of like length and, can grow into like 2x the defender he was when the year started. JD's a shooter.
Right.
Stan was improving throughout the year defensively, and he was giving people buckets different kinds of ways. So however you wanted it. So yeah, I think wing length is going to be a big one. You got to have a floor general of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got to have guys that are okay with playing roles. That's not going to get them headlines all the time.
Yep. Brand new front court.
No ego, low maintenance, low to no maintenance. I think you got to try to find guys that are that.
Yeah, I think they're going to have a really good idea of what these guys can potentially bring to the table on the floor, but just a deeper dive and more homework on the behind the scenes stuff.
Sure.
What's their competitive makeup? What kind of teammate are they? Because all that stuff, it's so important. And I think this year has been just a big illustration of why.
No doubt about it.
Oh, okay. We've gone an hour. We got to get out of here.
Wow.
Fun stuff.
Time for a meeting.
Yeah. A 14 and 15 basketball team. We've talked about it for an hour, but it's been a lot of future talks, so that's okay.
Yeah.
But no, this has been good. We will be back again on Wednesday to talk about this LSU game a little bit and just talk about some of the seniors that are out of here. Maybe provide some of our better memories from those guys and talk about maybe what the future holds for them. But be on the lookout for that and be on the lookout for everything over at Natty State Sports. We got a lot going on. Spring football is getting started, so we're going to be ramping up some coverage of that. We got the Bombastic podcast with Andrew Ellis. We got the John Neighbor Show, all of those things going on. Then check out our written content also over at nattystatessports.com.
Don't forget about the Natty State six-pack, too.
Don't forget about the six-pack.
You boys are going twice a week now, huh?
Yeah, we talk about weird things. We go live Tuesday and Thursday at noon, so that's always a good time. But appreciate everybody for rocking with us, for tuning in. As always, for Scottie Bordelon, this has been Curtis Wilkerson, and we will catch you guys on Wednesday.